Hey guys, this is Josh at Cassettiquette.net. I recently saw a video that Frank at Channel33RPM posted, one of my favorite channels, regarding a viewer question he received about what he considered his 10 essential LPs to be. So I wanted to make a response with what I consider to be my 10 essential LPs, and I also have a very short list of honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Now, just as a disclaimer, I listen to mostly punk, metal, and hard rock music, and my sweet spot is in the 70s and 80s. So, just so you know, going ahead, that's pretty much where a lot of my picks are going to be going. So, let's get started. So, I love punk music, and the Misfits' Earth AD is what I consider to be essential. I mean, they're kind of in a class of their own. They basically invented horror punk music, but I'm more of a fan of Glenn Danzig than I am Michael Graves, so I consider this to be a classic. Static Age is great, of course. Walk Among Us, fantastic, but as far as both of those albums kind of felt like compilations to me, this felt like a standalone on its own thing. This is the most I've ever paid for a record. I think this was about $65, and it's a first pressing, so I normally don't splurge this much on a record, but it's got some great songs on here. The artwork is very, demonic and DIY. But Devilock's a great song. Death Comes Ripping, Green Hell, Demonomania, Hellhound. Just some excellent songs on here. It hits really hard and really fast, and the record itself is in great shape. It's one of my favorite records that I have, and if you like punk music or hardcore music at all, or Danzig for that matter, this is definitely what I consider to be an essential. Okay, next is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. It kind of goes without saying that it's a pretty iconic album. This is a repressing. I don't know what number, but this has the gatefold in the middle with the prism and all the lyrics and everything. It actually came with 2 posters, but I'm not really a poster person. But what else can you say about this album that hasn't been said a million times before? An excellent album, really entrancing to listen to. You don't need to be high to enjoy it. On LP, it's pretty amazing. I also have it on 8-track and CD. It's good in any format, but there's something really excellent about the quality of listening to it on vinyl that I really enjoy. For my third pick, I have T-Rex Electric Warrior. Before this, they were known as Tyrannosaurus Rex, and they did mostly folk music. If you like Ronnie James Dio's first band, Elf, and you like a lot of that medieval weird stuff, then you would probably like early T-Rex. But this is when they first went electric, something that was kind of controversial with artists like T-Rex and Bob Dylan and artists like that when they started going for more of that electric sound. It is a gatefold. It's got this awesome picture of Mark Bolan, who pretty much is T-Rex. There was a band, but he wrote almost all the songs, so he's kind of the seminal figure. He actually died relatively young in a car crash, and a lot of people my age and younger really don't know much about him or T-Rex for that matter, and that's a shame because Electric Warrior is a great album. If you ever heard that song Bang a Gong, Get It On, that's on this album, but it's hardly the best song. Mambo's Son's great, Cosmic Dancer, Jeepster, Monolith, Life's a Gas is another great song. So just a classic album. It has all the lyrics on the back and everything. I mean, it's just an excellent, excellent album. Definitely recommend that if you like hard rock. Okay, for number 4, I have Marquee Moon by Television. They didn't have very many albums. There's a lot that you could say about Television. They kind of came out of that first wave of punk. They're not really what I would consider a punk band. Not quite new wave. They're kind of in their own thing, but some excellent songs on here. See No Evil, Venus, Marquee Moon. It's a 10-minute song. There's only 8 songs on this album, which is kind of short for LPs back then, but some absolutely awesome songs. This is one of the best side A's of any record that I have. If you've never really listened to this album and you like really off-the-wall music, I definitely recommend this album. This is probably my strangest album, and that's probably saying a lot, in my top 10 list here for what I'm covering today. Okay, we're halfway through now. The Stooges Funhouse. I don't know how you could not include a Stooges album. I was kind of torn of having this or Raw Power. I have a 2 LP set of Raw Power with the David Bowie mix, but this is, it just edges it out for me. It's a gatefold. This is when they really started getting kind of wild. The next album they'd be known as Iggy and the Stooges. Just a really cool gatefold. Introduced you to everyone in the band. Some awesome songs on here. Down the Street, TBI, Funhouse, LA Blues. Just Iggy Pop just roars through this album. and it's a really fun listen. I have this on CD as well, but there is a really fun quality about listening to it on vinyl. It's a really loud record. If you haven't really listened to the Stooges at all, I encourage you to start from the beginning, but this is the essential one you're going to want to own. So if you're presented with all their albums, reach for this one first. Led Zeppelin is pretty much a staple. I don't know anyone who doesn't like Led Zeppelin, and if I meet anyone that doesn't like Led Zeppelin, we're not going to know each other very long, because how could you not? A lot of people will probably make Led Zeppelin 1 their first album essential, but there's a lot of covers from blues artists and things like that, the Yardbirds and others in the rock spectrum, that it's not like their most original album. There is no fat on this album. Look at the gatefold. It's really awesome. This album just rocks. I mean, you can't skip any songs on this album, in my opinion. I don't know who all is out there watching, but if you're like 8 years old or something and you're just now getting into music, check out Led Zeppelin, and check out Led Zeppelin 4 especially. This is my favorite Led Zeppelin record. Okay, up next, this is an original pressing of David Bowie and the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust, a character he created for this concept album with his band The Spiders from Mars. Came out, I think, in 1969, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, 1972. This was huge back then. This kind of catapulted him to fame. He already had a lot of notoriety with Space Oddity and Aladdin Sane and some of his other records. A career that spanned 50 years or so, that there's not much you can expand on that, talking about it, that could give him any more acclaim than what he's already received in his lifetime. I got this before his death, so it wasn't really that hard to find. I've loved David Bowie for a long time. A lot of people have, and it's good that a lot of people are getting into his music after his death, because he had an amazing career and he made some awesome music. But now it's getting very difficult to find his records or find them at an affordable price. An awesome album, phenomenal concept, and my favorite David Bowie album. So I have Black Sabbath Master Reality. I freaking love Black Sabbath, especially their first 4 to 5 albums. I have Sabotage, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, the self-titled album, Paranoid. Their first album is very bluesy, but it was with this album, Master Reality, that they kind of became known for inventing the metal sound. A lot of people, they'll say that, and they'll show you the self-titled album, but you have, like, the Wizard or whatever, it's just like, there's like harmonica and stuff in that. It's a hard rock album, no doubt, but it's not really metal. They really started playing with the power chords and the dark themes, which they already were doing, but they really dove deep and founded what I consider, and many people consider, doom metal, or just heavy metal in general. This album kicks ass. I mean, you have Sweet Leaf, Children of the Grave, Orchid. There's some awesome instrumentals in here with Orchid and Embryo. Into the Void's an awesome song. I mean, there's just no foul on this album. It's one of their best releases. Not actually my favorite Black Sabbath album. My favorite is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but this is by far, no question in my opinion, the most essential Black Sabbath release to have. Up next, it's actually the first LP I ever bought about 4 or 5 years ago. Graduated college, started working at a job, and I actually had some extra money after paying bills, which is amazing. So I decided to get into collecting vinyl. I think the record store in a nearby town to me had just opened up. And I went to check it out, and this one caught my eye. I wasn't really the biggest Beatles fan growing up. I mean, I liked their later stuff, of course, but not enough to buy it. I never owned it on CD or cassette or LP even. This is the first record I ever bought, Revolver. This is when they really started expanding their sound and going past the I love this girl, she loves me, nah 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 stuff. And they really started experimenting with some things, which you could argue they did on Rubber Soul, but they really went for the gold on this album. Some awesome songs on here, some sitar, really experimenting with some sounds on this album. Final one on the list here. A lot of people consider this the greatest album of all time. I think that's a fair assessment. But Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I'm not the biggest Beach Boys fan. I hate all their surfing songs and stuff like that. I have Surfing Safari, of course, but Pet Sounds by far is their greatest release. Brian Wilson basically got left alone in a studio while the rest of the band went to Japan to tour. And this is what he came up with. He wrote all this nearly entirely on his own, with a band and an orchestra. And I mean, amazing songs here. Wouldn't It Be Nice, You Still Believe in Me, Waiting for the Day, Sloop John B, God Only Knows, just some Caroline, No, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. Just a really ahead of its time record that is still making waves now with a lot of people. A lot of people give this album a lot of acclaim because of the experimentation at the time, playing with like bicycle horns and dogs barking and things like that, and somehow making music out of it. In some ways, in my opinion, I think we still haven't caught up to what Brian Wilson was doing. Maybe because we're not all on LSD, but hey, that's okay. Those are my 10 essential LPs to have. It was really hard to narrow that down, so I had a little bit of overflow here, so I made a very brief 5 LP list of honorable mentions. So I have Lou Reed Transformer. I believe this is his first record he did beyond Velvet Underground. I freaking love this record. His biggest songs, Hanging Around, Walking the Wild Side, Perfect Day, Satellite Love, Goodnight Lady. Some of these songs followed him the rest of his career. I mean, a lot of people think this is about like, it's a lot of like sexuality stuff, but I don't know. I just can't tell. So, I said I liked punk earlier, and I have the Ramones' Rocket to Russia. This is an original pressing I found not too long ago. Awesome, awesome record. I'm not a humongous Ramones fan, but with a record like this, how can you not be? This has some of their major hits on here, if you want to call it what they had hits, and just essential for anybody who listens to punk music, if you have any respect for the roots at all. So definitely what I would consider an honorable mention for this list. I fear that a lot of people aren't getting that now that are coming through the public school system with cutting to the arts programs, but when I was in the 7th grade, I had this music teacher that taught me how to read music and got us into classical music, and my favorite composer during that time was Vivaldi with his Four Seasons. I finally found this not too long ago on LP, but the Four Seasons is my favorite classical piece. I've been looking for it for years, and I finally have found it. Anyone who's never really listened to Vivaldi or the Four Seasons, I definitely encourage you to check that out. A lot of people, they have the name recognition maybe for Vivaldi, but most people stick towards Bach or Beethoven or Brahms. So branch out. I think Vivaldi was Italian, so most people are listening to German composers when they're listing people that everybody knows. Awesome. Awesome composition. I'm really glad to have it on vinyl now. Slayer, Rain and Blood. I'm almost done. This is maybe a little satanic, I'm not sure. You've got some of their more well-known songs, Raining Blood, Criminally Insane, Altar of Sacrifice, Piece by Piece, Angel of Death. I mean, it's kind of a funny record. It's cheesy now, but this was pretty serious back then. Even now, just the speed of their songs is pretty ferocious even now. This is what I consider to be their best record. One of my favorite heavy metal releases of all time. It felt weird doing an essential LP list and not including any jazz. I'm just some white dude, so take it for what it's worth, but Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. The dude had a pretty amazing career and long spanning career. This is one of his more well-known releases, so I'm not really scratching too deep below the surface here. But this one's awesome. It sounds amazing because it's remastered from the original analog tapes. I'm not the biggest jazz fan, mostly because I haven't been exposed to it that much. I have this, some Charlie Parker, Nat King Cole, and that's about it. I don't really have a whole lot. I'm trying to get into it. Really cool to pass the time listening to something like this while you're working on something. It just puts you in a zone of concentration. It's not out there or anything like that. It's just a pretty relaxing listen. So that rounds out my honorable mentions list. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have some differing opinions? What would your list comprise of? Let me know down in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe. Check out all our other content at www.cassettiquette.net. Bye-bye.